Leviticus 4. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Bnei Israel, saying, If anyone sins unintentionally in any of Adonai's mitzvot that are not to be done, and commits any one of them, or if the anointed Kohen sins so as to bring guilt on the people, then let him offer his sin which he has committed, a young bull without blemish, to Adonai for a sin offering. He is to bring the bull to the entrance of the tent of meeting before Adonai, lay his hands on the head of the bull, and slaughter it before Adonai. The anointed Kohen shall take some of the blood of the bull and bring it to the tent of meeting. The Kohen is to dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before Adonai, before the curtain of the sanctuary. The Kohen shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of sweet incense before Adonai, which is in the tent of meeting, and he is to pour out all the rest of the blood of the bull at the base of the altar of burnt offering, which is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He is to take all the fat of the bull of the sin offering off of it, and the fat that covers the innards, all the fat that is on the entrails, the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is over them, which is by the loins, and the cover on the liver, which he is to remove with the kidneys, just as it is removed from the bull of the sacrifice of fellowship offerings. The Kohen shall burn them up as smoke on the altar of burnt offering. The bull's hide, all its flesh with its head, along with its legs, its innards, and its dung, the entire bull, he is to carry outside the camp to a clean place where the fat ashes are poured out, and burn it over the wood in the fire. It is to be burned on top of the place of pouring fat ashes. Now, if the whole congregation of Israel sins, but the deed is hidden from the eyes of the community, yet they have done one of Adonai's mitzvot that are not to be done, then they are guilty. When the sin that they committed becomes known, then the community is to offer a young bull for a sin offering and bring it before the tent of meeting. The elders of the congregation are to lay their hands on the head of the bull before Adonai, and the bull is to be slaughtered before Adonai. The anointed Kohen shall bring some of the blood from the bull to the tent of meeting. Then the Kohen is to dip his fingers in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before Adonai, before the curtain. He is to put some of the blood on the horns of the altar that is before Adonai in the tent of meeting, and the rest of the blood he is to pour out at the base of the altar of burnt offering, which is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He is to take all of its fat from it and burn it up as smoke on the altar. He is also to do with the bull just as he did with the bull of the sin offering. He must do the same with it. So the Kohen shall make atonement for them, and they will be forgiven. Then he is to carry the bull outside the camp and burn it as he burned the first bull. It is the sin offering for the community. When a ruler sins and unwittingly does one of the mitzvot of Adonai, his God, that are not to be done, then he is guilty. When his sin that he committed is made known to him, he is to bring as a sin offering a goat, a male without blemish. He is to lay his hand on the head of the goat and slaughter it in the place where the burnt offering before Adonai. It is a sin offering. The Kohen shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering. He is to pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar of burnt offering. He is to burn all the fat on the altar, just like the fat of the sacrifice of fellowship offerings. So the Kohen shall make atonement for him concerning his sin, and he will be forgiven. When any one of the common people sins unwittingly by doing one of Adonai's mitzvot that are not to be done, then he is guilty. When his sin that he committed is made known to him, then he is to bring for his offering a goat, a female without blemish, for his sin that he committed. He is to lay his hand on the head of the sin offering and then slaughter it at the place of the burnt offering. The Kohen is to take some of its blood with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering. He is to pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. He is to take away all its fat, just like the fat is taken away from off the sacrifice of the fellowship offerings. And the Kohen shall burn it on the altar for a soothing aroma to Adonai. So the Kohen is to make atonement for him, and he will be forgiven. Now, if he brings a lamb as a sacrifice for a sin offering, he is to bring a female without blemish. He is to lay his hand on the head with the sin offering and slaughter it at the place where they slaughter the burnt offering. The Kohen shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering. Then all the rest of the blood he is to pour out at the base of the altar. He must remove all its fat, just as the fat of the lamb is taken away from the sacrifice of fellowship offerings. And the Kohen is to burn them up on the altar on Adonai's offerings by fire. So the Kohen shall make atonement for him over the sin that he committed, and he will be forgiven. Leviticus 5. If a soul sins after hearing of a charge of an oath, and he is a witness, whether he is seen or otherwise known, if he fails to report it, then he will bear his guilt. Or if a person touches any unclean thing, whether it's the carcass of an unclean animal, or the carcass of an unclean livestock, or the carcass of an unclean creeping things, though it is hidden from him, still he is unclean, and he will be guilty. Or if he touches some human uncleanness, whatever his filth is by which he is unclean, though it's hidden from him, when he knows of it, then he will be guilty. Or if a person swears rashly with his lips to do evil or to do good about anything that one might utter rashly by an oath, though it is hidden from him, when he realizes it, then he will be guilty from one of these. So it will be, when one becomes guilty of one of these things, he shall confess about what he has sinned. Then he is to bring his trespass offering to Adonai for his sin that he committed. A female from the flock, a lamb or a goat, is a sin offering, so the Kohen is to make atonement for him over his sins. But if he cannot afford a lamb, then he shall bring as his trespass offering for the sin committed 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to Adonai. One is for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. He is to bring them to the Kohen, who will present the one for the sin offering first and twist its head from its neck, but not sever it completely. He is to sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the side of the altar, while the rest of the blood is to be drained out at the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. He is to make the second burnt offering according to the regulations. So the Kohen is to make atonement for one over his sin that he committed, and he will be forgiven. But if one cannot afford 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he is to bring as an offering for the sin he has committed 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a sin offering. He is to put no oil on it, nor pour any frankincense on it, for it is a sin offering. He is to bring it to the Kohen, and the Kohen is to take his handful of it as the memorial portion and burn it up as smoke on the altar on Adonai's offerings by fire. It is a sin offering. The Kohen is to make atonement for him over his sins that one has committed in any of these things, and he will be forgiven. The rest belongs to Kohen, just like the meal offering. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, if anyone commits a faithless act and sins unwittingly against the holy things of Adonai, then he is to bring his trespass offering to Adonai, a ram without blemish from the flock according to your value in silver shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary for a trespass offering. He is to make restitution for that which he has done wrong in regard to the holy thing, and is required to add a 5th part to it and give it to the Kohen. So the Kohen will make atonement for him and the ram of the trespass offering, and he will be forgiven. Now, if anyone sins and does one of Adonai's commandments that are not to be done, though he did not know it, he is still guilty and will bear his iniquity. He is to bring to the Kohen a ram without blemish from the flock according to your value as a trespass offering. Then the Kohen is to make atonement for him over the sin that he committed unknowingly, and he will be forgiven. It is a trespass offering. He is absolutely guilty before Adonai. Mitzvah of restitution. Then Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, suppose anyone sins and commits a faithless act against Adonai by dealing falsely with his neighbor in a matter of a deposit or a pledge of hands, through robbery, or is extorted from his neighbor, or has found what was lost and lied about it, swearing falsely, so sinning in one of any of these things that a man may do. Then it will be, when he has sinned and has become guilty, that he must restore what he took by robbery, or what he got by extortion, or the deposit that was committed to him, or what was lost and found, or anything about which he has sworn falsely. He is to restore it in full, and add a 5th part more to it. He must give it to the one to whom it belongs on the day of presenting his trespass offering. He is to bring his trespass offering to Adonai, a ram without blemish from the flock, according to your value, for a trespass offering to the Kohen. The Kohen shall make an atonement for him before Adonai, and he will be forgiven concerning whatever he may have done to become guilty. Leviticus 6. Parashat Zav, Torah of burnt offering. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, command Aaron and his sons, saying, this is the Torah of the burnt offering. The burnt offering shall remain on the hearth atop the altar all night, until morning, while the fire of the altar is kept burning on it. The Kohen is to put his linen garment with his linen undergarments on his body. He is to remove the fat ashes from where the fire has consumed the burnt offering in the altar, and put them beside the altar. Then he is to take off his garments, put on other ones, and carry the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. The fire on the altar is to be kept burning on it. It must not go out. Each morning the Kohen is to burn the wood on it, laying the burnt offering in order upon it, and burning up as smoke the fat of the fellowship offerings. Fire is to be kept burning on the altar continually, and must not go out. Torah of grain offering. Now this is the Torah of the grain offering. Aaron's sons are to offer it to Adonai in front of the altar. So he is to lift up from it his handful of fine flour of the grain offering, with some of its oil and all the frankincense which is on the grain offering, and burn it up as smoke on the altar for a soothing aroma, as its memorial portion to Adonai. Then what is left from it, Aaron and his sons are to eat. It is to be eaten as matzah in a holy place, in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. It must not be baked with hametz. I have given it as their portion of my offerings made by fire. It is most holy, like the sin offering and like the trespass offering. Every male among the children of Aaron may yet eat it, as their portion forever throughout the generations from the offerings of Adonai made by fire. Whoever touches them will become holy. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, this is the offering of Aaron and his sons, which they are to offer Adonai on the day when he is anointed, the 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for a continual grain offering, half of it in the morning and half of it in the evening. It is to be made with oil in a pan. When it is soaked, you shall bring it in. You are to present the grain offering in baked pieces as a soothing aroma to Adonai. The anointed Kohen, who will be in his place from among his sons, is to offer it. An eternal statute. It must not entirely be burnt up as smoke to Adonai. Thus every grain offering of a Kohen is to be a whole offering. It shall not be eaten. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, sin and guilt offerings. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron and to his son, saying, this is the Torah of the sin offering and the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered. The sin offering is to be slaughtered before Adonai. It is the most holy. The Kohen who offers it for sin shall eat it. It must be eaten in the holy place, in the court of the tent of meeting. Whatever touches its flesh will be holy. When any of the blood is splattered on a garment, you are to wash it in a holy place, but the earthen vessel in which it is boiled is to be broken, and if it is boiled in a bronze vessel, it is to be scored, then rinsed in water. Every male among the Kohanim is to eat of it. It is most holy. But no sin offering from which any of the blood is brought to the tent of meeting to make atonement in the holy place is to be eaten and must be burned up with fire.